Thank you. My fellow parliamentarians on the dais and not on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, I am ashamed to admit that this is my first visit to this beautiful building. I've just received a copy of a grand Tamil dream. For 7 years, I sat on a seat which was directly behind the seat occupied by this great Tamilian. And for the last 2 years, my seat is right next to the seat which was occupied by this great Indian and one of the greatest parliamentarians that India has seen. I don't know what Anna would have said with the bill that was passed yesterday. It was the first step towards linguistic imperialism that the Indian Parliament has taken. For the first time in Indian parliamentary history, with due apologies to my friend Sanjay Singh, the title of a bill has been changed to be only in Hindi without giving an official English equivalent. Anna fought for this in 63, 64 and 65 when he was a member of the Rajya Sabha. He would have been aghast that yesterday the Rajya Sabha passed a bill which renamed the Forest Conservation Act as the Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam. This is the first step that has been taken. I can't remember any of the 892 laws that have been passed since 1836, successive assemblies, parliaments, which has a name which has been changed from English. Normally we pass a law with an English name and a Hindi equivalent. This time, yesterday, we passed a law only in Hindi without giving the English equivalent. This is the first step. The second step will be taken probably in 2025 or 2026 if this government comes back to power. The delimitation, that was a big issue that was raised by many states in the year 2000 when the new states of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Uttarakhand were being formed when Mr. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. There was a political consensus that was created, thanks to Mr. Vajpayee, that delimitation would be put off till we get the results of the first census after 2026, which would have been in 2031. That would have been the normal year in which the census, decadal census would have taken place. And according to the constitutional amendment, the delimitation which changes the size of the assembly, the size of parliament, all that, would take place only after 2031. But 2021 census, as Dr. Jayati Ghosh has informed us, 3 years have passed, 2 years have passed, it's nowhere in sight, and it's unlikely to be carried out before the general elections of next year. Now, what this delimitation will do, again, this is a fear that was expressed by Anna in a speech in the Rajya Sabha in 1963, when the DMK changed its party constitution, if you recall. And this was a great speech that he made, one of the greatest speeches of Indian political history, when even the Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, was moved and went to congratulate Mr. Annadurai. It's all part of record. And in that speech, Mr. Annadurai pointed out that There's an imbalance in the Indian Union. This was an imbalance, in fact, pointed out first by K.M. Panikkar in the States Reorganization Commission, where he said we have very small states and we have very large states. And the very large states, which are although the most populous states, have disproportionate share in the political assemblies of the country. Today, if you look at the 6 states of India, UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Odisha and Jharkhand, is broadly the North Indian states and Central Indian states. They account for something like 42% of India's population. By the year 2030, they will account for almost 60% of India's population. And the fear that has been expressed by many chief ministers after Mr. Anna that states will be penalized for being pioneers in population planning will actually see their political representation fall. Kerala was the first to reach total fertility level of 2.1 in 1988. Tamil Nadu reached it in 1993. Andhra reached it in 2000. Karnataka reached it in 2002. And then subsequently other states followed. Now, with the relative share of population, you will see that the share in the Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha, and of course I'm leaving the assemblies aside, in the Indian Union, the Parliament of the Indian Union, you will see a complete change in the complexion. You will see South Indian states actually see their representation fall if you go purely by the population formula, which was the formula adopted in 1952. So we have a big challenge ahead of us that given the differential nature of performance in fertility reductions, the early birth states of South India will be at a tremendous disadvantage when delimitation takes place. I'm not talking of delimitation within a state. Already you have seen the dangerous moves that have been done for delimitation in a state like Assam. So this is a separate issue altogether, how you delimit constituencies within a state to disempower minorities, for example, to disempower weaker sections of society and reduce their leverage at election time. But this, I'm talking of a national level delimitation. And this is one, not just linguistic imperialism, you will find delimitation imperialism also, in a way, because you'll find the North Indian states increasing their representation at the cost of the states that have been successful in population planning. So this is the second issue that Annadurai spoke about for the 5 years that he was a member of the Rajya Sabha, which I think has increased relevance even today. The third issue that, if you look at this book, I've read many of his speeches, and that's why I speak from memory. A third issue which is very relevant and which Anna flagged in his speeches in 62, 63, 64 particularly, was the fact that there is the symbols of democracy and there is the spirit of democracy. In fact, I think in one of his speeches, he uses this phrase that we must not just be worried about protecting the symbols of democracy, but we must be more bothered about protecting the spirit of democracy. I have no doubt in my mind that the symbols of democracy will survive. We'll continue to have a toothless election commission. We'll continue to have a completely subordinate set of institutions. I'm sure we'll continue to have elections every 5 years. So the symbols of democracy, I have no doubt in my mind, because we are a country which loves to do Mangalarti of everything. We reduce everything to a ritual. And so we go through the ritual of having elections every 5 years. But what Anna had warned against, the spirit of democracy, and what my colleague Mr. Wilson has also pointed out, that the spirit of democracy is being snuffed out. And that's why 4 years ago, a former member of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee cabinet, a great fighter against emergency in 1975, Mr. Arun Shuri, described the current political situation in India as a state of undeclared emergency. That is because the spirit of democracy is being snuffed out day after day after day, while the rituals of democracy, the Sengol, the new parliament building, all these things will continue, elections will continue. So I think the warnings that Annadurai spoke about, of course I am not even talking about the issues of fiscal federalism, which Jairam Ramesh has very eloquently pointed out, and which Anna pointed out, and which subsequently was taken up by the former Chief Justice of Tamil Nadu, Pvt.Ltd, when he became chairman of the Finance Commission. So these are all issues that were taken up at that point of time. The relative powers of states, can I continue? I'm sure my remarks will not be expunged. So, Jairam Ramesh has already pointed out, and P.V. Rajbandar, who was the chairman of the Third Finance Commission, had in fact taken a leaf from Anna's speeches and spoken about protecting the fiscal rights of states, the economic rights of states, which over the years have tended to get emasculated, and particularly after the advent of GST, particularly, has seen a further shrinking in the space available to the states to raise their own revenue, for example. So I'm not even getting into the issue of federalism, fiscal federalism, the center-state relations in economic matters. With the abolition of the Planning Commission in 2015, the states lost their greatest champion in New Delhi. I worked in the Planning Commission. Dr. Ghosh's husband, a very distinguished economist, was also a member of the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission used to be the only forum in which the rights of states would get discussed. And the states had a voice. And the states negotiated with the center in a spirit of equality. That environment has changed in the post-2015 era. And today, when the finance minister releases what is a constitutional share of rights in taxes, it becomes a big media event. It becomes a press release. It becomes a whole issue of debate that the central government has released 10,000 crores of GST dues. It's a legitimate constitutional obligation of the central government, but that becomes a matter as if the central government is doing a favor to the states. So I don't wish to take too much of your time. I just want to say that I associate myself with what Mr. Wilson has said. And we are really at a crucial turning point. And I think the first meeting on the 23rd of June in Patna, followed by the meeting on the 18th of July in Bangalore, which brought together 26 political parties to form the India's group, the Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance group. Somebody just sent me a message yesterday that we should also say India is for Bharat, and Bharat should stand for bring harmony, amity, reconciliation and trust. Almost like Venkaiah Naidu. So India, the India is a unique experiment. Remember that the UPA was formed after the elections. This is an alliance that is being formed before the election. So there's a big difference, a big conceptual difference. In fact, even the United Front was formed after the elections. So this is almost for the first time really that such a broad-ranging alliance has been put together. 2 meetings have been held. I think the third meeting is being held in Mumbai on the 30th of this month, the 30th and the 1st of September. And I think we are moving towards a situation where there is a lot of give and take. These are parties which are fighting in different states, but which have come together on a common platform to meet the national challenge. And I think that's a very important step forward. The greatest impact of India has been that Mr. Modi has been forced to breathe new life into that ghost called the NDA. And today the NDA is visible. Today there was an NDA breakfast, a South Indian breakfast for NDA MPs. Tomorrow there will be some North Indian breakfast or lunch. So NDA is now becoming the flavor of the day. And that's the great contribution of India. But I think we are headed in the right direction. We have to work together, we have to come together on a common platform, put together a common agenda, and I'm sure the people will respond because there is today a yearning for change. People are fed up with the politics of polarization. People are fed up with the politics of showmanship without any great substance. And I'm sure that we will be able to bring together a common constructive platform, agenda for not just saving Indian democracy, but actually strengthening the foundations of Indian democracy, which have got weakened in the last decade, and also address some of the very serious economic challenges that we face as a country. So thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation, and thank you for this wonderful gift.